17 years of dedication to advanced dynamics, a leading tech corporation in Chicago, vanished in a single bleak Monday morning. I, Natalie Harper, 52 years old, sat in a small glass-walled conference room on the 14th floor, facing Diane Reynolds, Vice President of Human Resources, along with Richard Ellis, Director of Product Development. The air was so stifling I could hear every tick of the second hand on the wall clock pounding like a death knell. Natalie, we regret to inform you that due to a comprehensive restructuring, your position as Director of Algorithm Research will be consolidated into the Product Development Department, Diane announced in a flat tone, her face devoid of emotion. Her eyes briefly flashed a glint of satisfaction before quickly returning to a facade of fake sympathy. Richard, seated beside her, nodded, his voice a mix of seriousness and cold indifference. The company needs to move toward a younger, more dynamic team to adapt to the market. Your contributions are noted, but... He paused, pushing a gray envelope toward me. This is your severance package. You'll have 3 weeks to transition your duties, and the IT department will reclaim your company devices immediately afterward. I placed my hand on the envelope, feeling the icy chill of the thick paper. In my mind, I had pictured this exact scene 3 weeks ago, after accidentally reading an email misdirected by Richard to the executive team. The subject line, restructuring plan. Senior staff elimination phase. Was bolded in my inbox like a death sentence for my career at Advanced Dynamics. What they didn't know was that I had prepared for this moment over countless sleepless nights. I offered a faint smile, my voice so calm it made Diane pause. I understand. This decision must not have been easy. A flicker of relief crossed their faces. They must have expected tears or desperate pleas to keep my job. But no, I wasn't giving them the breakdown they anticipated. I looked Diane straight in the eyes until she shifted her gaze away. The room grew suffocatingly silent, broken only by the sound of the wind whistling past the large glass window behind me. We'll need you to return your access badge, laptop, and company phone before you leave on your final day, Richard continued, his voice faltering slightly. He'd clearly hoped for a messy farewell, but my composure threw him off balance. Understood, I nodded, my tone steady. I stood, envelope gripped firmly in hand, adjusting the navy blazer I had worn countless times over the past 3 years while pitching innovative ideas to the board, ideas they would now claim as company property. I walked out of the conference room, striding through the long, gray carpeted hallway, the neon lights overhead casting reflections of my silhouette like a cruel reminder. After nearly 2 decades, I was left with nothing but the shadow of myself. Through the clear glass walls, I could see the senior management team huddled in the strategy room, the very room where I had once presented groundbreaking research they had praised as the company's future. I told myself, they think Natalie Harper will crumble? They have no idea the real storm hasn't even begun. I lightly touched the personal phone hidden in my jacket pocket, where just hours earlier I had drafted a short message. Initiate the plan. I'm out Friday. They had no clue that firing me was just the first move in what was about to hit them. And this time, I wouldn't let anyone else determine my worth. 3 weeks earlier, when I received the misdirected email, I sat frozen in front of my screen for nearly 10 minutes, feeling the blood drain from my body. It was an email from Richard himself, attached to an internal chain between top executives discussing a senior staff elimination plan to rejuvenate the workforce ahead of the next funding round. They mentioned me by name, Natalie Harper, calling me a major obstacle because I held the keys to FlexiGrid's core distributed data system, the algorithm I had developed over the past 6 years. What stunned me most was the part Richard wrote. We need to get Natalie out before we complete the patent paperwork. There's no need to include her name on the documents. Once it's filed, all rights will belong to Advanced Dynamics, not the individual. I still remember the sickening twist in my gut as I read, "We must ensure she suspects nothing before she signs the handover report." Everything became clear. They planned to steal my life's work, legitimize it under a company-owned patent, and turn me into an outsider the moment I signed. What they didn't know was I'd already noticed odd signs months earlier. Management meetings I was no longer invited to, key projects slowly stripped from my control, internal email systems restricting my access to updates on the patent paperwork I'd proposed the year before. The very night I read that email, I began combing through my personal work logs. Every idea, sketch, prototype, and improvement on FlexiGrid was meticulously documented, complete with timestamps and proof that most of the breakthroughs, like the 40% performance boost, were made on my own time, at home, on my own equipment, not in the company's offices. In desperation, I turned to an intellectual property attorney, Karen Blake, a 60-year-old woman with piercing eyes and a quiet but commanding voice. I brought her every notebook, original file, computer purchase receipt, and even handwritten notes. She stayed silent for 30 minutes, reviewing everything, then looked up. "You have irrefutable proof the company never filed the patent. If you file immediately, ownership is yours, and they can't transfer it without your consent." That statement jolted me awake, like a blade cutting through the ropes that had bound me for years, making me feel overlooked and erased from the credit I deserved. We immediately got to work, revising the paperwork and preparing the exclusive patent application under my name, Natalie Harper, as an individual, unaffiliated with any organization. 3 days later, at Karen's law office, I signed the official documents, my hands trembling with emotion. Karen placed a hand on my shoulder and softly said, "You're not only protecting yourself but proving the true value of a creator. Don't let anyone else rewrite your story." During the waiting days for approval, I kept going to work as usual, masking every emotion. Each morning, I put on my blazer and walked through the revolving doors of Advanced Dynamics like stepping into a giant countdown clock ticking away. I smiled at colleagues, joined meetings, signed reports, all while quietly completing the extra paperwork Karen needed. Then, on a cold, rainy Tuesday morning, Karen called, her voice brimming with excitement. "Congratulations, Natalie. The patent has been approved. FlexiGrid is now yours. They have no rights to it anymore." My heart burst with joy. I looked up at the tall office window. Outside, the sky was gray, but inside me, the sun was blazing bright. I immediately sent a text to the number I had saved as backup. "Confirmed, phase 1 complete." The reply came instantly. "Perfect, see you tonight at the Marlowe, 8 p.m. I took a deep breath, glancing around the office, a space that in just a few weeks would no longer be mine, and thought to myself, they're about to face an earthquake. Just one more step, and Advanced Dynamics would pay for their greed. And this time, they had handed me the chance to expose it all. The Marlowe restaurant, tucked discreetly along North Dearborn Street in Chicago, was elegant but private, its crystal chandeliers casting warm light over pristine white tablecloths. That night, I stepped in wearing black high heels and a long coat, my chest still tight with nerves. But I refused to show a hint of hesitation. At the last table in the back corner, shielded from prying eyes, sat Benjamin Clark, CEO of Oriontech, the biggest rival of Advanced Dynamics, waiting for me. Mr. Clark, 58 years old, his salt and pepper hair neatly combed, rose to greet me with a warm smile and sharp eyes. "Miss Natalie, we finally meet," he said in a deep, steady voice. "I've been following FlexiGrid since it was first mentioned in industry conferences." We sat down as the waiter quietly poured red wine. I shared with him the journey of developing FlexiGrid, the sleepless nights refining the algorithm, the failed tests, and the breakthrough enhancements Advanced Dynamics had never known about. Clark's eyes lit up when I described the self-adaptive distribution feature I had perfected just before filing the patent. "You did all of this after hours, on your own equipment?" he asked, his voice full of amazement and excitement. "Yes," I nodded, opening my personal laptop and showing him the development logs with timestamps and storage locations. Irrefutable proof. Advanced Dynamics has no idea the most crucial parts of FlexiGrid were beyond their reach. He let out a soft laugh, tilting his head in admiration. They put themselves at a disadvantage by eliminating the one person holding the vital key. Miss Natalie, let me be direct. Orion Tech is ready to buy exclusive rights to FlexiGrid at a price that reflects its worth. I didn't answer immediately. This was a massive opportunity, but also a make-or-break decision for my entire career. I needed to ensure not only my own protection, but also the future of the dedicated research team that had stood by me over the years. I want my key engineers at Advanced Dynamics, at least 5 of them, to have the chance to join Orion Tech if they agree. They don't deserve to be tossed out just for standing with me, I said firmly. We'll arrange worthy positions for them, with better compensation than they ever had, Mr. Clark replied without a moment's hesitation. They're valuable assets if you've chosen them. In that moment, I knew I had found an ally. I pulled out the folder prepared by Karen, placing it on the table. Clark skimmed through the terms. Orion Tech would pay me a 7-figure signing bonus, appoint me as Chief Technology Officer, and grant me enough equity to become one of the company's largest individual shareholders. In return, Orion Tech would gain exclusive rights to FlexiGrid, while my name would remain as the official inventor. Too many last thing, I looked him straight in the eyes. Every press release and document about FlexiGrid must emphasize me as the creator. No bearing my name behind the company's research team like Advanced Dynamics used to. Not only do we agree, we're proud to do so, Clark answered, raising his glass. Those who innovate deserve recognition. We clinked glasses, signing the contract that very night when the clock struck 10 p.m. I still remember the slight tremor in my hand as I set pen to paper, but I also felt freer than ever before. In that moment, I flipped the script, turning their decision to fire me into the greatest opportunity of my life. As I stepped out of the Marlowe, the cool Chicago night wind whipped across my face, but inside a fierce fire burned stronger than ever. I texted Karen, "The plan is complete. Prepare the press release." That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up drafting the opening lines for my upcoming speech, where I would officially debut in my new role at Orion Tech and reveal FlexiGrid to the entire tech industry, no longer under the name Advanced Dynamics, but under my name, Natalie Harper. On my desk, my phone buzzed with an email from the Orion Tech PR team. The draft press release is ready for your approval. Headline: Orion Tech recruits FlexiGrid inventor as Chief Technology Officer. I leaned back in my chair, letting out a soft laugh. They hadn't just lost the algorithm, but also their chance to lead the data technology industry, all because of their greed and arrogance. The following Monday, when the press release about my joining Orion Tech spread across financial and tech news outlets, Advanced Dynamics fell into chaos. My personal inbox was flooded with messages, including long, emotional emails from engineers who had once stood shoulder to shoulder with me. They described the stifling tension, the non-stop emergency meetings, and the unanswered questions from management. Where is FlexiGrid? Who's going to run it? I arranged a private online meeting with my 5 most trusted engineers, those who had been with me since the project's earliest days. They were James, 41, lead software engineer; Maria, 35, cybersecurity specialist; Ethan, 38, system architecture lead; Vanessa, 33, core developer; and Logan, 40, QA engineer. Each was someone I trusted deeply, who had stayed up until 3 a.m. with me fixing the toughest bugs in FlexiGrid. We turned on our cameras, and though everyone looked exhausted, their eyes brightened when they saw me. James spoke first. "Natalie, what you did, I don't know what to say other than amazing. But over here, they're starting to blame us for inefficiency, like they're looking for an excuse to fire the old team." I clenched my fists, then relaxed, forcing my voice to remain calm. "You did nothing wrong. FlexiGrid exists today because of your work. I've already spoken with Mr. Clark. Orion Tech is ready to offer positions to all of you if you want them." A long silence followed. Then Maria's eyes welled up with tears. I don't want to stay here another minute. They only see us as replaceable. I'm not forcing anyone to follow me, I said quietly, looking into each face on the screen. But if you choose to come with me, Orion Tech won't just offer you higher salaries. They'll give you meaningful roles that match your talent and hard work. Ethan let out a long sigh, a small smile crossing his lips. I'm with you. Wherever you go, I know only you truly value this team. One by one, they nodded. Logan, always the quiet one, simply asked, "When do we start?" I immediately sent them contracts from Orion Tech's HR department with details of the offer, salaries at least 30% higher than they had now, signing bonuses, full insurance coverage, and equity incentives tied to the success of the next generation of FlexiGrid. Most importantly, they'd join an elite technical team under my direct leadership, no longer treated like faceless cogs in a giant machine. That same night, I received a group message. "We've all signed. Natalie, let us know when we should begin." Reading those words, I felt my eyes sting. In this cold, cutthroat tech world, loyalty and trust still existed. I replied, "Next Monday, we begin our new journey." Meanwhile, through industry friends, I heard Advanced Dynamics was frantically searching for replacements. They were posting high-level job openings everywhere, but no one dared accept after news of the FlexiGrid transfer swept across every tech forum. Their reputation had taken a massive hit in just 1 week since the press release. On Friday night, I received an urgent email from Karen. "Advanced Dynamics has filed a complaint with Orion Tech, accusing you of violating intellectual property agreements. But our evidence is rock solid. They don't stand a chance." I reread every line, a small, satisfied smile curling on my lips. They thought they could scare me with the same old legal threats? This time, I was ready so no one could twist the truth. On Monday morning, I woke before dawn, the warm golden light of early morning filtering through the curtains of my new apartment near Orion Tech's headquarters. My phone on the desk buzzed non-stop with alerts from tech news outlets. Right at 7 a.m., Orion Tech's official press release went live. Orion Tech welcomes Natalie Harper, inventor of FlexiGrid, as Chief Technology Officer. The company also announces exclusive rights to the FlexiGrid patent, ready to integrate it into upcoming products. Environmental impact. I invite all of you to adopt a more impact-friendly and three-dimensional environment, that which gives you air. Attached was a photo of me signing the contract, shaking hands with Benjamin Clark. Within minutes, the news was everywhere. Tech Insider, Wired, Bloomberg Tech. I watched the headlines scroll across my screen, still feeling like I was dreaming. Tech industry shocker. FlexiGrid inventor officially departs Advanced Dynamics. I stepped into Orion Tech's headquarters, a sleek, modern glass building, greeted by a massive electronic display flashing the words, "Welcome Natalie Harper, inventor of FlexiGrid, Chief Technology Officer of Orion Tech." My engineers were already there, dressed sharp, eyes shining with excitement. We entered the main conference room, where the Orion Tech leadership team was waiting. Mr. Clark began. "Today, we officially launched the FlexiGrid 2.0 project team. This isn't just technology. It's proof that people's worth should never be underestimated." The room erupted in applause. I looked at each familiar face beside me, knowing that as long as we stuck together, nothing could stop us. But I also knew that across the city, Advanced Dynamics would not sit by and watch us reshape the market. On the other side of town, Advanced Dynamics was in chaos. A former colleague secretly texted me, "Natalie, the whole building is in turmoil. The executive board called an emergency meeting at 6:30 a.m., and no one knows what's going on. Richard is pacing the halls, face bright red." Just an hour later, Advanced Dynamics stock started to tumble. By 9 a.m., the price had dropped 9% compared to the previous day's close. Investor forums were flooded with questions. What happened to FlexiGrid? Does Advanced Dynamics still own it? At precisely 9:15, my company inbox received a direct email from Richard Ellis. Subject line, Urgent, request to discuss FlexiGrid. The message contained a single sentence. Natalie, call me immediately. We can work something out. I forwarded the email to attorney Karen with a note. I will not contact him directly. All communication goes through my lawyer. Karen replied instantly. Absolutely right. Do not respond directly. We have the upper hand. Messages from former colleagues poured in, some congratulating me, others anxious. Ethan, systems engineer, messaged privately. Natalie, the execs are screaming at legal to find a way to stop you, but over here, everyone is saying they're on your side. Meanwhile, at Orion Tech, I was in the main conference room. On the large screen, the communications team tracked market reactions. The stock chart for Advanced Dynamics was deep red, while Orion Tech's stock had jumped 7% just 90 minutes after the announcement went live. Mr. Clark, holding a steaming cup of coffee, smiled at me. The decisive blow has landed perfectly. Now, Advanced Dynamics has two choices: negotiate or face an unstoppable crisis. At that moment, the head of PR announced, We've just received 3 interview requests from major outlets: CNBC, Business Week, TechCrunch. They want to speak with Natalie today. I took a deep breath. Even though I'd prepared, my heart was pounding. But I knew this was my moment. I nodded. Schedule them starting at 11 o'clock. I'm ready to tell the truth. When the clock struck 10 o'clock, the conference room phone rang. A video call from Richard Ellis. He appeared pale and disheveled. After a few seconds of silence, Richard's raspy voice broke through. Natalie, we don't have to take things this far. Advanced Dynamics invested years in you. We just need a little flexibility. I cut him off, my voice icy. I gave nearly 2 decades of my life, but I don't owe you my silence so you can steal my work. Everything will go through my lawyer now. Before I could hang up, Richard blurted, Wait, give us a chance to negotiate. I looked straight into the camera, speaking firmly. If Advanced Dynamics wants to discuss FlexiGrid usage rights, they can contact my attorney. This call is over. I ended the video, and the Orion Tech conference room fell silent for a second before erupting in applause. That very afternoon, the media ran headlines, Advanced Dynamics pleads to negotiate with FlexiGrid inventor. Across industry forums, comments like, Advanced Dynamics just shot themselves in the foot. A courageous woman teaching the tech world a lesson, became trending topics. That evening, as I stood by the window of my apartment, looking out at the city lights, my phone buzzed. Natalie, it's Vanessa. I heard they're planning a press conference to attack you. Don't worry, we've gathered enough evidence to back you up. I smiled, whispering softly, Let's see what they can do now that the whole world knows the truth. On Tuesday morning, just a day after Orion Tech's press release, the storm at Advanced Dynamics spiraled out of control. Financial papers simultaneously reported Advanced Dynamics reels after losing control of FlexiGrid, and inventor Natalie Harper becomes icon for intellectual property rights. Throughout the night, Richard Ellis and the leadership team at Advanced Dynamics didn't sleep a wink. Through an old friend in the planning department, I learned they held meetings all night, dissecting my old employment contract, desperate to find a loophole to sue me. But every path hit a dead end when attorney Karen sent a firm message. The files and evidence are meticulously prepared, don't waste your time. By 9 o'clock a.m., the phone in my Orion Tech office rang. A call from an internal Advanced Dynamics number. I didn't pick up. 5 minutes later, my personal cell phone started buzzing. The caller ID read Richard Ellis. I sighed, set the phone down on my desk, and let the shrill ringing echo through the quiet room. Just 10 minutes later, Richard's email arrived. Subject line, I beg for a conversation. I didn't need to open it to know the contents. Their desperation was obvious in every move. But I wouldn't let myself soften. They chose to betray me first. Now, They had to face the consequences. That afternoon, Vanessa reported, "Natalie, your remaining engineering team all submitted resignation letters this morning. I heard the HR director scream when 5 letters landed on their desk at once." That news made me lean back in my chair. Everything was happening faster than I expected. James texted, "I can't stay in a place where my worth is trampled. The core engineering team is gone. Advanced Dynamics will soon realize they've lost more than just one person." Ethan added, "Right after we resigned, the accounting and internal security teams started getting nervous. They're terrified of taking the fall if FlexiGrid collapses." At Orion Tech, the mood was the complete opposite. The entire office buzzed with new energy. From leadership to engineers, everyone was eager to dive into the FlexiGrid 2.0 project. Mr. Clark walked into the conference room with a broad smile. "Congratulations, Natalie. Advanced Dynamics just issued an urgent notice to shareholders admitting they no longer own FlexiGrid. Their stock price has dropped another 15% this morning alone." I glanced at the stock chart on the big screen, the red line plummeting, a rush of bitter yet satisfying emotion flooding my chest. This was the consequence of years of being treated like a replaceable part. Early that afternoon, my office doorbell rang. My assistant walked in holding a carefully sealed envelope, the Advanced Dynamics logo printed boldly in the corner. I opened it to find a handwritten letter, something no one expected from Richard Ellis. "Natalie, I know it's too late, but I hope you understand. If you return, I'm willing to restore all your privileges, double your salary, and give you full control over FlexiGrid." I set the letter down, lifted my gaze to the clear blue sky outside the window, feeling an almost serene calm. They still didn't understand. The problem was never about money. What I needed was respect, something they never considered when they decided to cast me aside. That afternoon, my former engineering team and I held our first meeting at Orion Tech to review the entire FlexiGrid codebase and plan upgrades. Maria, usually quiet, spoke with a rare, determined tone. "We won't just keep FlexiGrid running. We'll take it to heights Advanced Dynamics never even dreamed of." I nodded, my confidence stronger than ever. At the same time, an internal source sent me an audio recording from an emergency meeting at Advanced Dynamics. Richard was practically shouting, pounding the table upon hearing the news of the engineering team's collective resignation, while the other executives sat with heads bowed. The legal team reported that even if they tried to rebuild the algorithm, it would take at least 18 months and a massive budget. Not to mention that FlexiGrid was now patent protected, and any attempt to copy it would lead straight to a lawsuit. Late that night, Ethan sent me a brief message. "Advanced Dynamics has started pulling their ads for FlexiGrid. I think they finally realized they've lost control." I smiled, glancing at the scribbled notes from the first day I envisioned FlexiGrid 6 years ago. Who could have guessed that a single misdirected email would expose the truth and change my life, along with the fate of a tech giant? In less than 72 hours since the press release, the market was already showing clear signs of shift. Early Thursday morning, I received a summary report from Orion Tech's external relations team. 3 of Advanced Dynamics' 5 largest corporate clients had proactively reached out to us, voicing concerns about the legality of continuing to use FlexiGrid under Advanced Dynamics. One of the first emails I read came from the CFO of Logistics Nation, a supply chain management giant operating in 18 countries. His message was brief but carried serious weight. "We need an alternative to FlexiGrid as soon as possible. Advanced Dynamics no longer has the credibility to assure us of legal safety for our data." Before I could reply, Vanessa walked into my office, fresh from a meeting with the key accounts team, her face lit with excitement. "Natalie, not just Logistics Nation, 2 other companies in the banking and e-commerce sectors are lining up for demos of the Orion Tech version of FlexiGrid." I looked at her, a wave of pride and excitement rushing through me. Back at Advanced Dynamics, I had struggled for so long to convince potential clients to trust a still new algorithm, only to be undermined by the companies slashing budgets and even manipulating test results just to hit sales targets. Now, I was free to develop FlexiGrid to its true potential. By noon, CNBC aired a brief report. Several strategic clients of Advanced Dynamics are considering pulling contracts due to the FlexiGrid ownership dispute, while Orion Tech and new CTO Natalie Harper continue to receive partnership offers. Immediately, Orion Tech's stock shot up 11% during the morning session, while Advanced Dynamics shares were hit by a massive sell-off. By the end of the day, their market capitalization had shed another 20%. Forcing their board to issue a statement trying to calm investors, but they failed to offer any convincing explanation. That evening, as I reviewed materials for the upcoming FlexiGrid 2.0 demo, Ethan sent me a recording from an online sales meeting at Advanced Dynamics. Our biggest client is warning they'll sue if we can't prove ownership of FlexiGrid. They don't want to get caught up in an intellectual property lawsuit. I closed my eyes, listening to the fearful voices coming through my computer speakers, fully aware of the downfall they were now facing, an empire shaking to its core. On Friday, my engineering team officially kicked off the FlexiGrid 2.0 project. Maria reported that the first lines of code had been rewritten from the ground up, completely separate from anything Advanced Dynamics had ever touched, and improved with real-time security features, something major clients had always wanted but never received. In less than a week since the initial press release, I was invited to appear on a special live stream with Tech Insider to talk about this industry-shaking story. In the studio, I wore a navy suit, sitting across from veteran host Ellen Cooper. She opened the program with the question, "Natalie, can you share how it feels to see major Advanced Dynamics clients turning to the FlexiGrid you developed?" I smiled, my voice steady. It shows that clients increasingly value intellectual property transparency. When they place their data and their entire business operations on a platform, they need to know it belongs to the rightful creator. The 40-minute interview was widely shared on social media. Within hours, hundreds of thousands of comments and shares poured in. A woman brave enough to stand up for her own work. Advanced Dynamics destroyed their own credibility. Early the next morning, Mr. Clark walked into the conference room beaming, laying a stack of documents before me. "We just finalized a contract with Logistics Nation worth $15 million over 3 years for FlexiGrid, and 3 more clients are scheduled to sign next week." Before I could respond, he continued, "Orion Tech's stock has jumped a total of 27% since Monday. Analysts are predicting we'll soon surpass Advanced Dynamics in market value." In that moment, I realized my life had truly entered a new chapter. From someone pushed out onto the street, FlexiGrid and I had become the strategic center of Orion Tech's future. But I also understood deeply, on the other side, Advanced Dynamics wouldn't give up easily. The battle for clients and reputation had only just begun. A week after major strategic clients began leaving Advanced Dynamics, the atmosphere at their offices had turned suffocating. Through internal channels I still monitored, I learned that Richard Ellis, once so confident in his iron grip, was now a hollow figure, frantically shuttling between endless meetings with the board and major shareholders. On Monday night, I received an email from an unknown address. The subject line simply, "Inside Info. Confidential." The content was a transcript of an emergency board meeting at Advanced Dynamics. Due to serious errors in handling the intellectual property rights of FlexiGrid, the board unanimously votes to remove Richard Ellis from his position as CEO, effective immediately. Additionally, Margaret Evans, Vice President of Legal, is suspended for failing to ensure proper patent registration procedures. I read each line, my heartbeat steady. This was the inevitable outcome for people who belittled the work of others, thinking they could manipulate everything from a position of power. The very next morning, the Advanced Dynamics homepage officially posted a statement. Advanced Dynamics announces senior management changes to restructure operations and restore customer and shareholder confidence. At Orion Tech, Mr. Clark walked into my office and set an iPad in front of me, displaying a new email from the interim CEO of Advanced Dynamics, a man I had never met, William Grant, 54 years old, appointed by the board to put out the fire. The message was brief but crystal clear. We wish to open formal negotiations regarding licensing FlexiGrid. Advanced Dynamics is prepared to publicly acknowledge Natalie Harper as the sole inventor. I skimmed the lines, then looked up at Mr. Clark. He gave me a small smile. "You've forced them to recognize the truth, Natalie?" I took a deep breath and typed my reply. "Thank you, Mr. Grant, for reaching out. All discussions will go through my attorney and Orion Tech's legal department. In principle, I agree to negotiate, but the terms must go beyond financials and include your company issuing an official press release acknowledging my role." As I hit send, I knew I had finally closed a nearly 20-year loop. From a quietly dedicated engineer pushed aside, I now sat at the negotiating table with complete control. That afternoon, Orion Tech's legal team and attorney Karen held a strategy meeting. Karen held the file with a firm voice. "We won't rush. Advanced Dynamics is bleeding out. Every day they don't resolve this, their company's value drops further, while the market grows more confident in our FlexiGrid." Outside, the media continued to swarm the story. The Financial Times ran a bold headline: "Advanced Dynamics loses CEO over FlexiGrid crisis, begins negotiations with inventor." That evening, whispers spread through private industry groups that Advanced Dynamics had agreed to pay double the market rate in royalties to avoid a prolonged lawsuit. One analyst posted an assessment: "This deal will be a major financial blow, but if they don't sign, Advanced Dynamics will have to rebuild their entire data infrastructure, putting them at least 2 years behind in the market." The next morning, I received an invitation letter from Advanced Dynamics. "We hope Ms. Natalie Harper will attend the signing of the FlexiGrid licensing agreement, to be held Friday at Orion Tech headquarters. Following the ceremony, we will issue an official press release recognizing your authorship." I read the invitation over and over, overcome by a complex feeling. Not quite triumph, but a deep sense of relief, like a weight I'd carried for nearly 2 decades had finally lifted. On Friday, in Orion Tech's main lobby, the signing ceremony took place in front of reporters, both companies' lawyers, and dozens of engineers from the FlexiGrid project. William Grant, looking older than his age, stepped forward to shake my hand with a resigned expression. "We were wrong not to value your contributions. Advanced Dynamics publicly apologizes and formally recognizes you as the inventor of FlexiGrid." As camera flashes burst around us, I gripped his hand firmly, replying simply, "What matters is that, at last, the truth has come to light." I walked out of the hall to thunderous applause, with the engineers who had stood by me waiting at the door, their eyes no longer fearful, but proud. As I got into my car to head home, my phone pinged with an alert. Advanced Dynamics had just released an official statement, naming me as the sole inventor of FlexiGrid. Financial news sites showed their stock price continuing to tumble, while Orion Tech's market value surpassed Advanced Dynamics for the first time. In that moment, I understood. This wasn't just about one person winning or losing. The entire tech industry had learned a lesson about the value of innovation and the importance of respecting its creators. 3 months after the historic signing, I sat in the makeup room at Grand Central Convention Center in New York, where the Global Technology Conference, the biggest event of the year, was taking place, drawing thousands of experts, business leaders, investors, and journalists from around the world. On the giant LED screen in the main hall, a bold marquee scrolled, "Natalie Harper, inventor of FlexiGrid, keynote speaker. Lessons on the value of innovation." As the makeup artist gave my hair a final touch, I still couldn't believe it was real. Just a few months ago, I had been a middle-aged engineer cast aside after 17 years of dedication. Today, I was about to step onto a grand stage in front of more than 5,000 attendees and millions watching online. I took a deep breath as the announcer's voice boomed through the hall. "Please welcome our keynote speaker today, Natalie Harper, the woman who changed how we view intellectual property in the tech industry." A wave of applause thundered through the hall. I strode onto the stage, the spotlight catching the Orion Tech CTO badge glinting on my blazer. As I began to speak, the hall fell completely silent except for my voice resonating through the air. We live in an era where innovation is the foundation of all progress. But innovation cannot thrive if those who create are treated as faceless, disposable, or replaceable. I shared my story, from those nights spent tirelessly writing code to the moment I uncovered the plot to steal my work and the journey of reclaiming intellectual property rights. All told, with raw, honest emotion, without embellishment. I saw many in the audience tear up, especially female engineers who had written to me saying, "My story gave them the courage to speak up." As I concluded my speech, I declared, "We cannot talk about innovation without respecting innovators. Any company, organization, or nation that wants to be sustainable must start by protecting people's hard work." The applause exploded, lasting nearly 2 minutes. As I stepped off the stage, Mr. Clark and the FlexiGrid engineering team were waiting, all of them beaming with pride. Mr. Clark took my hand. "You've done what not only Orion Tech needed, but what the entire tech industry needed." Back in my seat, I watched the live news ticker and saw a fresh headline. Advanced Dynamics announces policy change, creates Innovation Management Division, launches new author rights protection policy modeled after Orion Tech. I was momentarily surprised, but not angry. I was glad they finally realized that only by respecting innovation could they hope to repair what they had lost. That evening, at the conference's celebratory reception, many CEOs of major corporations approached me to discuss potential collaborations. But what touched me most was when a young engineer, around 25 years old, shyly stepped forward, eyes shining. "Natalie, I want to thank you. Your story gave me the courage to refuse signing an unfair contract, even though they threatened to fire me." I held her hand tightly. "You did the right thing. Never let anyone make you believe your worth is just a number on a payroll sheet." After the party, I returned to my hotel, opened my laptop to check emails, and found a new message from Richard Ellis, now just the former CEO of Advanced Dynamics. The subject line, "I'm sorry." The content was only a few brief lines. "Natalie, I was wrong. I hope you understand that what you've done has taught the entire industry a valuable lesson." I looked out the window at the sparkling lights of New York City. I didn't reply. That apology, late but necessary, said everything. The next morning, news broke that Orion Tech had secured 3 more major contracts. Its stock price hit a new record high, and many tech companies began adjusting their policies to better protect innovative employees. FlexiGrid was now considered the gold standard for modern distributed data platforms, and my story was being shared across forums and industry magazines. Deep down, I knew the journey wasn't over, but at least I had proven that standing up for your own worth doesn't just change your life, it can change an entire industry. A year after the Global Technology Conference, I sat in my office on the 28th floor of Orion Tech's headquarters, the screen in front of me displaying a market value comparison of major tech companies. The bold green text stood out clearly: Orion Tech, $123 billion. Below it, Advanced Dynamics, only $97 billion. I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes to savor the moment. At last, the company I was leading had officially surpassed Advanced Dynamics, the place that once saw me as a worn-out burden. My assistant Jenna, 26 years old, bustled in, handing me a thick envelope with a bright smile. "Congratulations, Natalie! An official invitation from the Global Women in Technology Conference. They want you as the keynote speaker." I took the envelope, glancing at the gold-embossed conference logo at the top of the letter. Memories flooded back, the long nights of coding until exhaustion, the tense meetings where I fought to protect FlexiGrid, the day I left Advanced Dynamics in silence. And now, I wasn't just recognized, I was invited to share my story with thousands of women in tech from around the world. At the end of the letter, the organizers wrote, "We believe Natalie Harper's journey will inspire future generations of female engineers to fight for the value of their work." I smiled softly, signing the acceptance. Jenna added, eyes sparkling. You have no idea. The whole company is so proud that our boss is a living example of creative value. Everyone in tech is talking about FlexiGrid as proof of the power of perseverance. That same afternoon, I received an internal report from the development team. The FlexiGrid 2.5 project was ready to begin testing, featuring quantum security improvements developed by me and my engineers. Mr. Clark personally sent a message. We haven't just surpassed advanced dynamics, we're setting a new industry standard. You and your team have changed the game. That evening, I attended the one-year anniversary celebration of FlexiGrid's launch as Orion Tech's flagship product. In the ballroom glittering with lights, I stepped onto the stage to accept the Technology Breakthrough of 20 TechX Award. The entire hall rose in a standing ovation, and I had to pause for a moment to collect myself, overwhelmed with emotion. Thank you all for believing in me when no one else did. I want to express my gratitude to the colleagues who left Advanced Dynamics with me. Without them, FlexiGrid would never have become the technology icon it is today, I said, my voice catching in my throat. As the ceremony ended, a group of female IT students came up to greet me, the youngest no more than 19 years old, her eyes sparkling. Natalie, we want to be like you. I printed your story and taped it right above my study desk. I laughed, placing a hand on her shoulder. What matters isn't becoming me, but becoming yourself, someone who's brave enough to fight for your own creations. That night, back in my office, I sat at my desk, staring at an old photo of me as an unknown engineer at Advanced Dynamics, standing at the back of an auditorium dwarfed by sharply dressed executives. I remembered exactly how I felt then, lonely, exhausted, yet never stopping believing that FlexiGrid could change everything. And reality proved me right. The next morning, I attended a major press conference as the keynote speaker of the Women in Technology conference. Standing before dozens of cameras, I shared, "No one has the right to decide the worth of your innovation except you. Document every idea, keep proof of your work, and never hesitate to protect it. It's your perseverance that makes the difference." The entire hall erupted in a long, thunderous applause. That day, I received more partnership offers from investment funds eager to support my next big ideas, hoping Natalie Harper would continue to lead groundbreaking projects. That afternoon, the Financial Times published an editorial. Natalie Harper, the new icon of the tech industry, who taught leaders the true value of innovation. I closed my laptop, watching the sunset stretch across the tall glass windows, seeing my reflection. The Natalie who was once dismissed, now rightfully honored as a symbol of determination. And in my heart, a new fire ignited. FlexiGrid was only the beginning. There was so much more waiting for me and those who believe in their own worth. For my own story, I realized that if you believe in the value of your creativity and dare to stand up for it, you could not only change your life, but also help reshape an entire industry. Through every hardship, I learned deeply. Perseverance and refusing to let your work be undervalued are the keys to turning ideas into a legacy and earning the recognition you deserve. What do you think about my story and journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss more heartfelt family stories and valuable life lessons.